Welcome back to the channel, to the main channel. We are back better than ever. Let's get it, guys. We are ready to dive into week 15 of the NFL. Man, this season just continues to fly by. We are almost at the end and into my favorite time, playoff time, man. Made a lot of money last year during the playoffs, so I cannot wait. But we still got a few more weeks to get through, so we're going to dive into week 15. Got some spread picks for you guys, some money lines, some player props, got a couple parlays that we put together as well. So we'll dive into those. But before we do, let's take a look back at week 14, how that ended up going down. We've had better weeks, man. Went 3-6 last week, but the good thing is we split it up pretty well as far as units. Running half units on some plays, full units on others, and we end up hitting the 3 hits that we do have were plus money hits. So it's not a total loss on the day. We do lose just under a unit. It was 0.94 units that we ended up losing on the day. So that 3-6 record doesn't look the greatest, obviously. Not what we were looking for, but not going to kill us at the end of the day. We are still up 11.82 units on the year. We are 58, 43, and 1 push on the year as well. So, like I said, man, not the week that I was looking for. Obviously, we want to hit positives every week, but not going to kill us in the grand scheme of things. So let's go ahead and dive into week 15. Let's have a positive week this week. Let's see all green on the board. So let's go ahead and dive over to Outlier for that first play of the day. First up, I'm going to be looking at the Houston Texans on the money line over the Miami Dolphins. They will be at home in Houston. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff for that one. We get this at minus 142 over there at DraftKings right now. For the best price. You can see it's available over there at Caesars and down the board as well. But best odds right now do live over there on DraftKings. Now we can see, man, the Dolphins are kind of heating up, right? They've won 4 of their last 5. But let's take a look at who they have played. They beat the Rams, beat the Raiders, beat the Patriots, lost to the Packers, and then beat the Jets. So not a whole lot to write home about, man. They've beaten some struggling teams, albeit the Rams, have had their ups and downs this year. Not a horrible squad, but the Raiders, the Patriots, and the Jets, not going to put a whole lot of stock into those wins. However, these Raiders and the Patriots right here, they won these games pretty handily, which is what you expect from a good team facing a bad team. So, like I said, the Dolphins are heating up. However, this Texan team isn't shabby either, man. Look, they haven't looked as decent in these last 5 compared to the Dolphins, right? Winners of 2 out of 5, so 2 and 3 in their last 5. But if you look at their losses, now the Jets that the Dolphins did beat doesn't help our cause too much, right? But they did lose to a good Lions team. They beat the brakes off the Cowboys. Another case of a good team beating a bad team. And then they did lose to the Titans. So they've got some wonky losses in here, man. Right? End of the day, though, man, I do think this is the better team still. We can kind of come over here and look at a few different things. Let's look at their record versus common opponents, right? So they have faced, 9 games where they face the same teams. The Dolphins are 4-5 in those games. The Texans are 6-3. If we scroll on down, let's look at the Texans offense against this Dolphins defense. Now, this is where things are a little tight, right? Texans are sitting at 11th in terms of scoring offensively. Defensively, the Dolphins are 14th in terms of points allowed. They are 6th in red zone efficiency, 3rd in third down conversions, and the Texans do rank 21st in both of those categories. If we're looking at passing yards, Texans are 17th or 16th in rushing yards going up against a Dolphin defense that is not too shabby, man. 11th against the pass, 7th against the run. But let's go ahead and flip it. And we can see that this is where I think there's a bigger discrepancy, man, is that, both teams come into here with decent defenses. One offense has been rolling more than the other, where we got the Dolphins sitting at 23rd in terms of scoring. The Texans are 12th in points allowed. We scroll on down. They're 14th in terms of passing yards, 25th in terms of rushing yards on offense, where they're going up against the 7th-ranked passing defense, the 10th-ranked rushing defense. And they get after the quarterback, man. 2nd in terms of sacks, 9th in terms of QB hits, and 11th in terms of hurries. Now, the Dolphins are 8th and 7th in terms of hits and hurries. They are middle of the pack, sitting at 16th in terms of sacks given up. If we look at their strength of schedules, they're kind of, very similar, 24th for the Texans, 28th for the Dolphins, but the strength of victory is what separates these two as well. 18th for the Texans. The Dolphins' strength of victory has them sitting all the way down at 29th. And then another key component here, the Dolphins have been a better team at home than on the road. They are sitting at 2-4 away from Miami, whereas Houston is 4-2 at home. So End of the day, all things considered, like I said, man, the Dolphins are, they're heating up. They're heating up at the right time. I just still think that the Texans are the better team overall here. The Texans have kind of had that like midseason slump. I think they pull it together here at the end of the year, ramping up and going into the playoffs. So I'm taking the Texans on the money line, minus 142. This is one of them ones, man. I've said it, a couple times last week. If you're on the Dolphin side, I can't argue you off. I wouldn't even try to. This is one where you can make a case for both sides, and both teams have something to play for, right? And maybe the Dolphins are in more of a desperate spot here where they can't really afford too many more losses. So if they want to stay in the playoff hunt. So, like I said, you can make a case for both sides. One more thing before we jump away, I almost forgot this outlier, this insight from Outlier. The Dolphins are 0-8 in their last 8 games versus top 10 scoring defenses. Obviously, the Texans do fall into that category. So 8 straight losses against top 10 scoring defenses. So definitely playing into Houston's favor there. Like I said, I'm all over the Texans on the money line on this one. Next up, I am going to be looking at another money line. I'm going to be looking at 3 money lines actually and throwing them together as a parlay. I'm taking the Chiefs on the money line over the Browns in Cleveland, taking the Jets on the money line over the Jaguars in Jacksonville, and then I'm taking the Eagles at home over the Steelers for a 3-team money line parlay, excuse me. That's going to give us plus 230 odds for this 3-pick parlay. So let's go ahead and jump back over to Outlier. We'll dive into each of these games real quick. Look at the Jets first, man, on the money line. It's minus 162 if you want to take this one as a straight bet as well. A little juice, but you can, justify taking that one there. Look, both come into this one, winners of 3 games each. So definitely have had their struggles on the year. The Jaguars are coming off of a win in Tennessee, but man, they scored 10 points in that one. I think that was more or less of a debacle from the Titans more than anything, man. It's hard. You're hard pressed to find too many opportunities where you can win a game scoring 10 points, right? It's not even one of those situations where I think the defense just played lights out. It's just the Titans played that horrible on offense in that game. And then, jumping over here to the Jets side of things, 4 straight losses against the Dolphins, the Seahawks, Colts, and the Cardinals. The thing is, though, is like they're losing to solid teams, right? And they're playing decent, playing close games. They're in a lot of these games, save for this 31-6 blowout to the Cardinals. But that was coming off of a win over the Texans, who have, like we said, kind of had just in a little bit of a midseason slump. But you look at most of these games, man, throughout the season, like they've been into most of them. There's besides their week 1 loss to the Niners there by 13, a lot of these other losses are 1-possession games. Denver, Minnesota, that's good. These are good teams. Denver, Minnesota, Buffalo. They do get blown out by Pittsburgh, but we have seen this year that Pittsburgh is in that top tier of the AFC, and it was in Pittsburgh as well. Lose a close game to division rival New England. They do win. They do beat the Texans, like we said. They do get blown out by the Cardinals, but then another close game against the Colts, the Seahawks, and the Dolphins. And all these teams, they're either elite teams or they're contending. They're trying to find their way into the playoffs as well. So they're not losing to crappy teams, for one, and then they're not getting blown out by these decently good teams or, above average teams as well. So I do like the Jets here against a struggling Jaguar team that is down to their backup quarterback. Look at them against common opponents. This is one of those things where it's like there's not much to write home about with either of these teams. And their common opponents in 8 games, they're both 3-5. You look at them offensively, they're 25th in scoring, going up against a 28th ranked Jaguar defense in terms of scoring. 31st in terms of rushing, 19th in passing. This Jaguar defense is horrible. 31st against the pass, 24th against the rush. So the Jets haven't been able to get much going offensively, but if we can see that they have scored 26, 21, and 27 in their last 3 games, they are starting to roll offensively. They just have not been able to get the stops on defense to close out these games. They were winning against Seattle. I think they were up big in that one in the first half. We had Seattle on the money line in that one. I do remember sitting at I was at the Bengal game while, we're score watching up there. And, I see the Jets jump out to a big lead. I'm like, there's an L there. Seahawks end up coming back in that one, and that's the thing is like it's the Jets have the offensive firepower to make some things happen, and they have played better as of late. Like I said, in these last 3 weeks, defensively they can't get it done. However, you're now facing a Jaguar offense that has scored 10, 20, 6, 7. In their last 3 to 4 games, they're not looking too solid offensively. So I think that's where things really differentiate between these two. Defensively, going the Jets going up against this Jaguar offense, it's not like they are just lights out themselves, but there are some areas that they can hang their hat on, specifically against the pass. They are fourth overall in the league. This Jaguar offense is only 24th. They are middle of the pack in terms of rushing yards, 16th in terms of rushing yards given up. Still, though, the Jaguars only sitting at 26th in terms of rushing yards on their end. If we look at the strength of schedules here, the Jaguars have had the tougher schedule here, sitting at fifth, the Jets sitting at 13th. The strength of victories, though, that does end up flipping. Now, they are in the bottom 10, both of them. Jets sitting at 22nd, Jaguars sitting at 25th. But hey, there's only 3 victories for us to really filter that one off to as well. So the thing that is a little concerning here is the Jets are a putrid 1-6 away from New York this year. The Jaguars, though, are just 2-4 at home. So I do like this one here, and the public is all over this one as well, which can be concerning at times. 85% of the money is on the Jets here on the money line. I'm going to roll with the public, though, on this one. So that's the first leg of our parlay. Let's go ahead and jump over to the next one. We're looking at the Chiefs on the money line over the Browns. Now, the Chiefs have been something else this year, right? Let's look at this insight here. They are 9-1 in their last 10 games on the road. Okay. Now, they are also 12-1 on the season, with that one loss coming in Buffalo to the Bills, losing by 9, 30-21. Other than that, man, they have reeled off 12 wins this year in crazy fashion, right? 19-17 in back-to-back games against division rivals, the Chargers and the Raiders, both of those at home. Only a 3-point victory over the Panthers. They haven't covered the line for shit this year, right? They've been horrible against the spread. But we're not looking at a spread, man. We're just looking at the money line, and there's no way that you can convince me that this Cleveland Brown team is going to beat this Kansas City Chief team. You just can't do it, man. Now, do I think the Chiefs come out here and just roll them? No, I don't. We've seen the Chiefs just skate by in what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 victories in a row. I mean, you can even the Raiders. That was a closer game. It's like you got to go all the way back to October 20th for them to to find a victory by more than one possession, and that was against the 49ers, who we've just seen struggle all year, right? So I can definitely see how people are jumping on the Browns as far as the points are concerned, but when we're looking at a money line perspective here, there's no way in hell I'm getting behind Cleveland, even at home, going up against the Chiefs. I'm just not. Record versus common opponents, the Browns are sitting at 1-5, Chiefs 8-0. There's a lot looking Kansas City's way. Obviously, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. We look at them offensively going up against this Browns defense. They are 11th overall in terms of scoring. The Browns are 26th in terms of points allowed. Look, it just gets worse. They're first in third down conversions. The Chiefs, the Browns are sitting at just 11th. 13th in passing yards. Browns are also 13th in terms of defending the pass. It's kind of funny. 21st in rushing yards. Browns are 22nd in terms of rushing yards allowed. So there are a little bit of some areas here where they do line up. You can see where the Browns could give them a little bit of trouble. But if we flip this here, man, this Chiefs defense isn't shabby whatsoever. We know this, man. Led by Chris Jones over there on that defensive line. 7th in terms of scoring for points allowed. The Browns have definitely struggled in this aspect. Now, they've had some moments since Winston has come into play. We can go back here. This is where Jameis came into the starting lineup. 29 points put up against the Ravens, but then 10, 14, 24 points put up against the Steelers, 32 against that Denver defense, but then 14 again against Pittsburgh last week. So they've had their struggles offensively. They've had a couple booms, you know what I mean? That 32 points against Denver, 24, and then 29 against division rivals Pittsburgh and Baltimore. But I say it a lot, and I'll just keep saying it. These divisional games, man, they're always different. You know what I mean? They're always just a little bit different. So I don't take too much stock in the fact that these were higher scoring games. These guys, they know each other. These franchises, within the divisions, they play each other 2 times a year, as we all know. Every single year, you start to get to know the schemes and the players on the other side. So you see a little bit of different action in those games and, the rest of the season when we're taking on other teams here outside of the division. 2-4 at home, 5-1 on the road for Kansas City. Look, like I said, man, there's definitely some things that can make you align with Cleveland as far as taking them with the points. If you're taking them on the money line, man, you got some balls that I don't have. I'm definitely rolling with Mahomes and the Chiefs on this one here to get that 13th win. Man, like it's the Chiefs still have something to play for here. They want to lock up that 1 seed, get home field advantage, and then we might see them start to rest some guys. We might see them take the foot off the gas a little bit, but I don't see that happening this week. So, Chiefs on the money line is going to be the second play of this parlay. Let's go ahead and jump over to the third one now. I'm looking at the Eagles over the Steelers. Now, this is going to be a game, man. This is going to be a game. I can't either this one or the Bills and the Lions for game of the week, right? Like there's some good matchups this week, man. Seahawks and Packers as well. It's gonna be another good one. So definitely some good matchups on the board. I think this one is gonna be phenomenal. I'll definitely, I'm glad it's a 425. I can watch my Bengals at one. Just flip right on over and watch the Steelers and the Eagles after that because this is gonna be a game, man. Cannot wait. And I think personally, I'm gonna throw it out here. I think this could be a Super Bowl preview. I really do. It pains my heart as a Bengals fan to say that I think the Steelers could make it to the bowl, but I do, man. They got the defense to get there. And that offense is coming around as the season goes on. Russell Wilson has looked great under Mike Tomlin, which I did expect, man. Tomlin's such a damn good coach. So I'm not surprised whatsoever. Tomlin even had Fields looking good at the beginning of the year, man. You know what I mean? So like I said, this could definitely be a preview of the Super Bowl right here. I've been saying it for a while. I don't think I've ever said it on these videos. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rant here, guys. A little bit of a tangent that has nothing to do with here. But obviously, I'm a Bengals fan. I've grown up in Ohio. Was born in Dayton, so I've been a Bengal fan my whole life. My mother's side, they're all from Pennsylvania. They are all Steeler fans, right? Besides my great aunt and uncle, they are Eagles fans. So kind of funny, man. I've grown up around the Steelers my whole life, and I've been telling my mom all year. And my youngest of brothers is also a Steeler fan now. She somehow has sucked him in to this as well. But I've been telling them all year, man, that I really do think the Steelers have, after the first couple weeks, and I saw that defense, I'm like, they got a chance, because it's been the Chiefs have been the team to beat in the AFC, and I saw how my Bengals beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship a few years back, right? And it was defense. It wasn't that we didn't go in there with this high flying offense that we have this year. Obviously, we had the talent on that side of the ball as well, but it was the defense that won that game. If you go back to that championship game, they held them to 3 points in that second half. Had Mahomes confused, man. It was the first time in my life that I saw Mahomes looking like baffled. I feel like the Steelers can really beat them the same kind of way. They have the defense to just really get after Kansas City and to get after Mahomes, and they got the talent on that offensive side of the ball as well to make it happen. So you ask me, man, I think the Steelers are kind of the team to beat right now in the AFC. Looking at it, I know a lot of people are going to be like, "What about the Bills?" Man, until I see the Bills do it in the playoffs, I'm not with it. I've seen the Bills have great regular seasons before. Josh Allen is having probably the best season of his career, obviously so far. I need to see it in the playoffs, man. It's the same thing with Lamar Jackson. The great regular season teams. I need to see you break through, man. Get to the Super Bowl. Get there. I need to see that before I really put my stock into either of those sides. But long story short, man, I just went off on a little tangent. Like I said, I probably would. Steelers, I feel like, could definitely take the AFC. I definitely feel like the Eagles could take the NFC as well. It's either going to be the Eagles or the Lions, in my opinion. But I could see a Steelers-Eagles Super Bowl. I could see a Steelers-Lions Super Bowl. But let's get back on topic here. This is the third leg of our parlay, looking at the Steelers, or looking at the Eagles on the money line over that Steeler team. Now, this is what I've also told my mom and my brother, right? I do think your Steelers have a great chance of getting to the Super Bowl. I think they lose when they get there. I think they lose to the Eagles. I think they lose to the Lions if they face either of those two teams. And I have to hold true to that, man. I think that that's the case here this week as well. The Steelers have been superb this season. There's no other way to cut it, right? Winners of two straight now coming into this one. Winners of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of their last 8. That one loss was against the Browns on Thursday night in Cleveland in that snowy mess, right? This has been a solid team for sure. But if we flip over here to the Eagles side, we are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 straight wins from this Philadelphia team. They have not lost since September 29th in Tampa Bay to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Man, started the season 2-2. They've rattled off 9 straight wins, 11-2, taking on the 10-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I said, man, this is going to be a great game. And you look at the record versus common opponents, man. The Eagles are sitting at 6-1. Steelers are sitting at 6-2. So, like I said, man, just really evenly matched. You look at this Steeler offense; they're sitting at 10th in terms of scoring. But this is the thing, man. this Philadelphia Eagles defense has just been lights out over the course of what, the last, man, I don't even know what, since like week 5, week 6. Just a solid unit over there. Obviously, we know the Steelers have a great defense as well, but we'll get to that here in a second. But looking at this Steeler offense against this Philadelphia Eagle defense, excuse me, stumbling on my words there for a minute, 23rd in terms of passing yards, going up against a second-ranked passing unit defensively for the Philadelphia Eagles. They are 9th in terms of rushing. This is where the Steelers have always, run first team with a strong defense, right? This has been the Steelers' recipe for years. They are 9th in terms of rushing. Eagles are 8th in terms of rushing yards allowed. Yards per play, the Steelers sit all the way down at 19th. The Eagles defense, first overall in terms of yards given up per play. Just a lot looking the Eagles' way defensively. They're 7th in terms of sacks. Steelers, that offensive line has been, the one kind of weaker unit of that offense. So sitting at 20th in terms of sacks given up on the season. So like I said, man, a lot looking their way. Let's go ahead and flip that real quick before we move on down. Let's look at that Steeler defense against this Philadelphia offense. Now, Steelers are 5th in terms of scoring and points allowed defensively. Eagles are 8th, though, in terms of scoring, 26 points per game. They're sitting at 9th in red zone efficiency, going up a 13th ranked defense from the Steelers in terms of red zone efficiency. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting, right? The Eagles sitting all the way down at 31st in terms of passing yards this year. And that's where the Steelers defense has had a tendency to, I don't want to say struggle, but, they were solid against the run. 4th overall against the run, 18th in terms of passing yards allowed. So definitely if there's an area where you can get them, that's where it is, right? So rushing, though, man, the Philadelphia Eagles, 1st overall, Saquon Barkley has been unreal. Now, we do have to talk about that pass rush from the Steelers, too, man. They are sitting at 12th overall, going up against a 22nd ranked Philadelphia offense in terms of sacks given up. So, definitely an issue there where the Steelers could take advantage. But let's go ahead and look up here. This is the thing that I want to check out. Let's look at these injuries, man. We do have Dallas Goedert on the injury report for Philadelphia. That one does hurt, but wide receiver-wise, we are back in action. We do have A.J. Brown, we do have Devonta Smith, and we do have Saquon Barkley. And at the end of the day, I think that is just enough to put Philadelphia ahead. So I'm going to take the Eagles here on the money line, minus 250, combining that with the Chiefs and with the Browns. And like I said, that gives us a plus 230 3-pick parlay. We're going to jump back over here to DraftKings. I got another 3-pick parlay. I'm looking at some alternate spreads on this one. I'm looking at the Ravens minus 9.5, the Bengals minus 2.5, and the Commanders minus 2.5. Now, if we stick all 3 of those together, we get a 3-pick parlay for plus 184 odds. Like I said, that's over there on DraftKings. So let's go ahead and jump back over to Outlier. We'll break down each of those real quick as well. Now, first one, the Ravens minus 9.5. Now, we scroll on down here. We can see the Ravens have struggled a little bit here in the last few weeks. They lost to the Eagles by 5 in, what was that, week 13. They did have the bye last week, so they do come into this one with a little bit of extra rest, a little bit of extra time to prepare as well. But before that loss to the Eagles, they took on a tough Charger team in LA, came away with the win. They lost to Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh by 2. A tough game against the Bengals, they win by 1. Blew out Denver at home, right? And then another tough loss there to the Browns. So like I said, a little bit of up and down here for the Ravens, and we can see that they have not really covered any kind of bigger spreads throughout the season, right? They've only covered this 9.5 point mark here 3 times this year, right? And that was against the Bills, where they blew them out the waters, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then the Broncos, like I said, when they blew them out 41-10. So it's what we've seen from the Ravens, right? They've had a couple of them just explosion games, right? I could see that being the case here, man. We're looking at the 3rd-ranked scoring team in the league going up against a 14th-ranked Giants defense, middle of the pack in terms of points allowed. The big thing here, though, they're 5th in terms of passing. The Giants are 6th in terms of passing yards allowed. The Ravens are 2nd in terms of rushing in the NFL. The Giants are just 29th in terms of rushing yards given up per game. So I think that's the kicker right there. This is where the Ravens are just going to dominate. They are at their best when Lamar's running around, and you got King Henry back there as well, evidenced by that 2nd-ranked rushing attack in the NFL. Man, play to your strengths, right? And play to their weaknesses, and I think that's what they'll do here. The Giants just haven't really been able to put much together this season, evidenced by the fact that they have lost, I think it's 8 in a row. They have not seen a victory since October 6th when they beat the Seattle Seahawks. Just not been a solid season whatsoever. And if we flip this and look at their offense going up against this Ravens defense is not your father's Ravens defense, right? Or even your grandfather's Ravens defense. This has not been a Baltimore D that we're used to seeing. Besides their number one ranked rushing defense. Other than that, man, it's been a mess on that side of the ball. However, you're facing a Giants team that's just even more of a mess offensively. They're dead last in terms of points scored per game. Less than 15 points scored per game. That is insane, guys. That is insane. This is an NFL, you're a professional football team. Can't even get 15 points up on the board on average. So 32nd dead last in terms of red zone efficiency as well. 28th in terms of passing yards. They are middle of the pack, 15th in terms of rushing yards per game. But like I said, they're going up against the number one rushing defense in the league. So I like the Ravens here. First of all, in this money line or in the spread parlay, the Ravens are also 5-3 against common opponents. That the Giants are just 1-8. Towards as well. We can look at this outlier insight. The Giants are just 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 games versus bottom 10 scoring defenses, and this is an alternate spread as well. The original spread is sitting at 16.5. That's definitely a little higher than my liking. Definitely think this is a get right spot for them. I think they kind of beat the brakes off the Giants in this one, so I like them sitting at minus 9.5 on this parlay. Let's go ahead and jump over. Look at the next one. We're looking at the Bengals here, minus 2.5. Now, this line is sitting at 4.5, and I think you're safe taking it there. However, I want to get a little bit more insurance just for the simple fact that there's some familiarity between these two teams. I'm struggling to get that word out. The head coach for Tennessee, Brian Callahan, is the former offensive coordinator for the Bengals, so he knows those guys well over there. That's a little concerning for me. He was there with Jamar for the rookie year, for Burrow's rookie year, for T. Higgins' rookie year, and he was there to help develop these guys. He knows their strengths, he knows their weaknesses, he knows their tendencies. You know what I mean? So there's definitely an avenue here where this Tennessee defense that's not bad could have some success against this Bengals offense. Now, like I said, Tennessee defense, not bad, but 27th in terms of scoring, in terms of points given up. So there's definitely room for the sixth ranked Bengals offense in terms of scoring to get some points up on the board against this Titan team. I do think, though, like I said, I think that I don't think that this is a blowout. I don't think that the Bengals just come in here and light it up and drop 40 on them. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a tighter game, and that's why I'm pushing this down to minus 2.5 for this parlay here. We look at the Bengals. They are the number one passing team in the league, but the Titans are the number one team in terms of passing yards allowed. So there's definitely, Jeffrey Simmons over there has given the Bengals some trouble over the last few years. We've seen them quite a bit, man. In the last few years, they played them last season, and Burrow was suffering from that calf injury. Played them the year before, and it was in a time where the Bengals really needed to bounce back, and they got a tough, hard-fought win over Tennessee in Tennessee. Played them in the playoffs the year that they went to the Super Bowl, the Bengals. So definitely, like I said, some familiarity between I don't know why I can't say that word today, between these two teams, and then with the coaching in play. And there's some former Bengals over here as well, man. You got Chido Awuzie, starting cornerback for the Tennessee Titans. He will be back in this one, lining up against Jamar Chase. They know each other well, man. Chido was there for, like I said, Chase's rookie year, and then the next 2 seasons. I think, yeah, Chido was with him for the next 2 seasons as well. So he knows Jamar, man. They've gone against each other quite a bit of times in practice. But you could flip it both ways and say that, Jamar might know some of Cheeto's tendencies as well, and he could have a big game here as well. So definitely some different avenues to look at. You got Tyler Boyd over there for the Titans on offense as well, former Bengal. So going to be a fun one to watch if you're a Bengals fan. Personally, I'm going to enjoy watching this one and just seeing those former faces on the other side as well. But I definitely think it plays into this game being a little bit closer. But ultimately, I do think Cincinnati pulls this one out. I do think that it's scary to say this about the Bengals facing anybody, but I do think they have the better team here. I do think they have more talent. But I do think Tennessee is an upstart team that could surprise them as well. So I think it's a close one. I think the Bengals pull it out, though, so I will take them minus 2.5. And they are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 games versus bottom 10 scoring defenses. And obviously, with the Titans sitting at 27th, they would fall into that category. So Another thing looking our favor here with the Bengals. But like I said, I like them at -2.5 for our parlay. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Commanders, looking at them -2.5 over the Saints as well. This is a 1 p.m. kickoff. It's going to be in New Orleans. Excuse me. We're looking at the Saints here, or looking at the Commanders, coming off of two straight victories, blowing out the Titans there, 42-19, and then excuse me, I'm wrong. Coming off of a victory over the Titans. Prior to that, three straight losses to the Cowboys, to the Eagles, and to the Steelers. Close, one possession losses, and you can kind of excuse that Steeler and Eagles. Those are two solid teams that will be contending for championships this year. That Cowboys loss at home was definitely surprising for this Washington team. And the thing is with this Washington team is that they've been lights out offensively, right? Fourth ranked scoring, fourth overall, third in terms of rushing, kind of middle of the pack with that passing attack. But they are eighth in terms of red zone efficiency, sixth in terms of third down conversions, and fourth in terms of first downs. And the Saints defense hasn't been spectacular by any means. Middle of the pack in terms of points allowed at 14th. Just 28th in terms of passing yards given up, 25th in terms of rushing yards giving up, and 25th in terms of first downs allowed. They are 8th in terms of red zone efficiency and 9th in terms of third down conversions as well. So they do have that playing for them there, but a lot playing against them. And the big thing here is their offense has been really lacking. 14 points last week, 14 points the week before. They did put 35 up on Cleveland the prior week there. We just talked about Cleveland and their up and downs that they have been experiencing this season as well. And that Cleveland defense is nothing to write home about either. They've definitely had their struggles this year. And then if we look up at the injuries, man, David Carr is out for this one with that left hand fracture. I just, I don't know where the Saints get their points. They've been struggling the last couple weeks to score anyways. And this Washington defense isn't anything to, it's another one of those situations where it's nothing to write home about. We look at that matchup there. Let's go ahead and flip those real quick. They're just 17th in terms of points allowed, middle of the pack, but the Saints just 16th in terms of scoring. They are 28th in terms of rushing yards given up. The Saints are 10th in terms of rushing yards. They're 19th in terms of passing, but the Commanders sit at 5th overall in their passing yards allowed. I like the Commanders here, especially coming off of a bye, and keep that momentum rolling from Week 13 there against the Titans. So I'll take them on that third leg of the money line, -2.5. Like I said, we can get that over there at DraftKings. That's going to be +184 odds for all three of those. That's the Ravens -9.5, the Bengals -2.5, and the Commanders -2.5 as well, +184 on DraftKings. And next up, looking at another parlay over there on DraftKings. Comment parlay down below, man. I'm parlay happy this week. Got another 3-team parlay going down here. Looking at the Commanders team total points over 22.5. Then looking at a total alternate for the Cowboys and Panthers over 37.5. And then another total alternate for the Packers and Seahawks Sunday night football matchup over 40.5 points as well. Combine all three of those together, we get a 3-pick parlay for +205 over there at DraftKings. So let's go ahead and jump back over to Outlier to break those down just a little bit more. So we'll look at the Commanders first, that points over 22.5. Now look at them in their last 5. They've hit this at an 80% rate. 4 of their last 5 with that one miss coming against the Philadelphia Eagles and that top-ranked defense there, right? Still got 18 points up against them. Look at them push it back into the last 10 games. We can see they're still hitting at an 80% rate. 8 out of 10. So obviously the Eagles was the one there, and then the Chicago Bears, who also boast a pretty decent defense on their end. But look at some of these, man. 42, 34, 23, 40, 27, 27, 26, 42. Like this offense can put some points up, right? And we're going up against a Saints team that is sitting middle of the pack. They're 14th in terms of points allowed. Man, like I said, though, we talked about this just a minute ago in the spread. I think this Commanders offense is just really top tier, and just not even a step above the Saints, a couple steps above the Saints and the Saints defense. I think that they will be able to put a ton of yards up on them, man. Like I said, 28th in terms of passing yards allowed and 25th in terms of rushing yards allowed. I just think that they move the ball at ease against the Saints defense, and they find their way in the end zone quite a bit, I think, as well. So definitely like their chances of putting a ton of points up in this one. So that's going to be the first leg of this parlay. Then next up, we're going to be looking at the Panthers and Cowboys, that over total alternate over 37.5. Now, this one's sitting at 43.5, I believe, originally. And you can get that at plus money. Yeah, 43.5 is what it's sitting at currently right now. We can see that over here. But overall, we can see, man, down below here at this number right here, this 37.5. Both these teams are hitting the over at an 85% rate. We can see this outlier inside as well. The over has hit in 8 of the Carolina Panthers' last 11 games, and like I said, this total is actually sitting at 43.5. So Panthers are just kind of an over team, anyways. But like I said, man, in the last we can see this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games now for the Cowboys. They have hit over this 37.5 point mark. And then for the Panthers, man, we can see that they have crushed this number. 10 of the last 11 games that they have played, they have found themselves going up over this mark as well. Just 38 points needed from let's go ahead and scroll down here. This is what I like, all right? Let's go ahead and flip these to the defenses, and this is where I get to my over, man. 31st for scoring for the Cowboys, second to last, giving up 28 points per game. Dead last for the Panthers, 32nd, giving up just under 30 points per game. So the defenses are going to allow these offenses to roll. That's the way that I look at it. Bryce Young has played much better, man, since he's been inserted back into the starting lineup for Carolina. And you know, like, it's not like the Cowboys don't have playmakers on their side of the ball as well. So that's the route that I'm going to go with it. Like I said, this is going to be the second leg of our parlay. Let's go ahead and look at that last leg here. And that's going to be the Packers and Seahawks, that Sunday night football game. I'm looking at an alternate here, total over 40.5. That line is sitting at 45.5 right now. I think this will be a close game with it being in Seattle. I definitely like the Seahawks, sticking around and making this one competitive. I do think the Packers ultimately pull this one out. But we can see both teams on the season have hit this number specifically over 40.5. They have hit over that at a 77% rate, both of these squads, right? 3 straight for the Packers, 2 straight for the Seahawks. But, we look past that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 of the last 10, they have gone over this mark. Let's look at the Packers here. It's kind of the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the last 11 games they've gone over this mark. The Packers in their last 3 games, 31 points, 30 points, 38 points. So they're getting some numbers up right. And we look at the Seahawks, 30 points, 26. There were 16 against that Arizona team, right? That was a slugfest over there. But like I said, in the last 2 weeks, 26 and 30, and then against the Packers, who have dropped 30 or more in 3 straight weeks. Both these offenses have the capability of putting some points up, man. I think this is going to be kind of a back and forth game where, both of these teams, it's another one of the situations where both of these teams have a lot on the line. They're both playing for something, right? So, definitely like the over here. I think that both of these offenses come out throwing that ball around, finding their way in the end zone quite a bit, and throwing the points up like we've seen from both of these teams so far over the last couple weeks. Be looking at some player props now, and I'm looking at T. Higgins first of my Bengals. Over 65.5 yards, minus 110 over there at BetMGM. Going up against those Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Now, we can see over here, let's look at this outlier inside. He has exceeded this mark in 5 of his last 6 games that he has played. That one under of this mark was last week against those Dallas Cowboys. Ja'Marr Chase went off, right? Ja'Marr Chase went off. That Dallas defense did kind of zone in on T. Took him out of the picture. They allowed Ja'Marr to do his thing, and Ja'Marr did his thing. I think we see the reverse here this week. I think that the Tennessee focuses a lot more in on, they are first overall in receiving yards allowed overall, right? They have that capability on that side of the ball. And then they're also, like I said, with Jeffrey Simmons and that defensive line, they are going to be able to get after Joe Burrow. And that's where T and, his dude's 6'3", 6'4". He's got the hands. That's where he comes into play, man. That's where he becomes a big factor. And I just think that he, the focus is on Ja'Marr. He just dropped 170-some yards last week, another multi-touchdown game. So I think the defense zeroes in on him. Brian Callahan knows how explosive he can be. And I think that we see T freed up a little bit more than what we've seen or what we saw last week. And we see this, man. Like I said, in 5 of his last 6 games, he has hit over this mark as well. So I definitely like his chances here. And T has been kind of let's go ahead and jump over, because Outlier only shows us last season's stats specifically, and he only had 19 yards. But I spoke about this earlier in the video, man. Joe Burrow was suffering from a calf strain. This was, I want to say, like week 3 or week 4 last season. And Burrow was just completely immobilized. Me and my daughter, man, drove down to Nashville for this game and just saw a complete massacre. It was so embarrassing. Really, really hard game to sit through and watch. Burrow was a sitting duck back there just getting annihilated. So it's no wonder that T was not a factor in this one. The offense wasn't a factor, period. But prior to that, let's go ahead and flip over here to StatMuse and see. These are the 4 games that he's played against Tennessee. Now, obviously, like I said last year, he was targeted 4 times, caught 2 balls for 19 yards. Prior to that, targeted 9 times in the 3 games that he played for 6 receptions, 7 and 7, 78 yards, 96 yards, 114 yards. T has had some success against these Tennessee Titans, for sure. For sure. So I like his chances of continuing that here in this week as well, especially, like I said, just looking at it over 65.5. I only need 66 yards for him. Man, give it to me all day. So I'm on this one, minus 110 over there at BetMGM. You can also get it minus 110 over at Bet365 as well. And next up, I'm looking at David Montgomery of the Lions. I'm looking at his receiving yards over 16.5. We cashed this a couple weeks back, and we're running it back again, man. We can get this at minus 110 over there at Bet365. Let's look at this insight here from Outlier. He has exceeded 16.5 receiving yards in 5 of his last 6 games at home. He's averaging 28 yards receiving in those games as well. So about 11 yards over on average, what we actually need him to hit. Let's look at him on the season, man. 77% rate in 13 games. 10 of the 13 games he has hit over that mark, including 6 straight. So definitely love to see that. And we can come down here and see his supporting stats. Now, as far as targets are concerned, he is the second most targeted running back, right? Jahmyr Gibbs does actually get more targets than he does, but we can see the proof in the pudding. Like I said, man, 6 straight times that he has gone over that mark, 7 of the last 8 games. So definitely like that. Let's go ahead and scroll over here and look at Buffalo. Receiving yards allowed, they do sit at 9th, right? So that's a little scary. But if we look at them specifically against running backs, damn, we love that. Look at that green, man. We love when it flips from red to green, right? And all the way down at dead last when it in terms of receiving yards allowed to the running back position. So I like Montgomery to keep his streak alive here at least for one more week and to cash for us yet again. Like I said, we cashed on this a couple weeks ago. We cashed on a David Montgomery anytime touchdown as well. So, man, David Montgomery, you're good in my book, bro. Keep doing your thing, and let's get another cash this week. So minus 110 over there at Bet365 for David Montgomery, receiving yards over 16.5. And next up, I'm looking at Pat Freiermuth. They call him Muth over there in Pittsburgh, man. Receiving yards over 34.5. This is minus 113 over there at FanDuel. Now, he's only hit this at a 50% rate in his last 10 games, but he has hit over this mark in the last 3. Now, this is a little scary, right? Philadelphia is sitting at 3rd in terms of receiving yards allowed and 5th in terms of receiving yards given up to that tight end position. But the thing that makes me jump on this one is we go ahead and look at the Steelers, their injury report, and we can see, let's scroll on down. George Pickens is still out. He will be out for the 2nd straight week with a hamstring strain. So we go ahead and let's scroll on down here to the targets. We can see that Pickens is that number 1 targeted receiver on this team. Pat is sitting there at 2nd. Above, any other receivers, any other running backs, any other tight ends. He is the 2nd most targeted player, period, on this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So take Pickens out the way, man. Now it's Freiermuth, right? So I think we see a good dose of Pat. I think we see a good dose of Calvin Austin in this one. I think we might even see Van Jefferson get into the mix as well. But I do like seeing Freiermuth, man, getting up over this 34.5 receiving yard mark. Like I said, he's cleared that in 3 straight games. In both of these games, we saw Pickens out there on the field as well, and he crushed this number, right? So I do like his chances here of getting over that mark with Pickens out. The ball's got to go somewhere, man, and this is going to be a game where they're going to need to get some points on the board against this Eagles defense. So I do like Freiermuth here, like I said, for his receiving yards over 34.5. Now, I do also like him with an anytime touchdown. Now, this is probably something that I'll sprinkle on at plus 330 odds there over on FanDuel, so definitely some good odds. We look at their touchdowns against Philadelphia sitting at 4th. Tight ends that jumps down to 13th, so still middle of the pack. It's not like they're anything shabby here, right? But definitely better than that 4th overall for touchdowns against, period. So I like that, and he has scored in 2 straight weeks, so Russell is looking his way. Let's go ahead and look at red zone targets as well, right? And we can see that once again, man, same thing as the targets. Pickens is that number 1 targeted receiver down there in the red zone. Freiermuth sits at 2nd. So I like his chances, man, of finding the end zone here. Like I said, I don't think this is something that I put a full unit on. Probably a sprinkle, either a quarter unit, maybe a half unit at most. But I definitely like his chances of getting in the end zone. We've seen him hit at a 50% rate in his last 10 games, and like I said, 2 straight. So definitely like I said, his chances of getting in there. I feel like I've just repeated myself 4 times now with that. But plus 330 odds over there at FanDuel. Pat Fryermuth with an anytime touchdown. Guys, that is going to do it. Man, I think that was probably the longest video that I've ever recorded. Definitely rambled a little bit there, so I do apologize, man. A lot of talking today. Um, I don't know what it is, man. I guess your boy's just feeling good, man. Feeling in a good mood, and a lot's coming out. So hopefully that good mood and that positive energy flies on into these picks, and we find ourselves with some profit at the end of the day and a lot of green check marks when we do the recap next week. So that's what we're shooting for, man. Let's have a great week 15. I hope you guys all cash out, man, and have a great week 15 as well. And I will see you guys back for week 16, man. 2 more weeks after that. Cannot believe it. So have a great day, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.